Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're unpacking a highly debated geopolitical event that has absolutely dominated global headlines lately. We're talking about Jordan's recent interception of Iranian missiles and drones that were aimed right at Israel. Now, to truly grasp why this happened, we really can't just look at today's news cycle. We have to peel back the layers, trace the historical context, and look at the modern financial ties that actually explain the events unfolding right now in the Middle East. Let's dive in.
Section 1. The current missile controversy. So why exactly did Jordan intercept Iranian missiles aimed at Israel? I mean, this is the burning question, isn't it? During a recent escalation, Iranian missiles and drones were launched toward Israel. And geographically speaking, those projectiles had to cross directly through Jordanian airspace. Now, rather than just letting them pass on by, Jordan actively intercepted them, effectively protecting Israeli airspace. To an outside observer, an Arab nation shielding Israel from an Iranian attack might seem, well, highly unexpected given the broader regional tensions.
And as you'd expect, that unexpected action led to an immediate, fierce public reaction. Social media platforms basically erupted with anger directed at Jordan's leadership. You had people labeling King Abdullah a hypocrite and a liar. A lot of folks felt deeply betrayed, believing Jordan should have just allowed the strike to pass right through. But before we can really understand these accusations, we have to understand the actual history of Jordan's strategic positioning. A lot of these unmet expectations from the public actually stem from a misunderstanding of some very long-standing alliances.
Which brings us to Section 2, Origins, the 1948 deal. To figure out how we got here, we need to look at how Jordan's early strategic positioning was defined by this rapid-fire sequence of border shifts and conflicts. In 1948, Israel is established. Immediately following that, in 1949, the Arab-Israeli War takes place. Then, fast forward to 1967, and the Six-Day War results in significant territorial losses for Jordan. Shortly after that, between 1970 and 1971, Jordan actually expels the Palestinian Liberation Organization, or PLO. To understand Jordan's actions today, we have to look really closely at these specific historical markers, starting with what went down in 1949.
During that 1949 Arab-Israeli conflict, Jordan's then monarch, King Abdullah I, made an absolutely crucial strategic choice. He approached the Israeli leadership with a backroom deal. The pitch was essentially this: while other Arab nations fought, Jordan promised to step back and not engage in combat against Israel. And in exchange for staying out of it, when Palestinian territories were divided up, Jordan was handed control of the West Bank. It was a highly pragmatic deal, prioritizing territorial acquisition over broader regional conflict, and it really set a foundational precedent for everything that followed.
Moving on to Section 3, Lost Land and Internal Conflict.
But, that 1949 arrangement didn't last forever. In 1967, during the Six-Day War, Israel fought and reclaimed the West Bank right back from Jordan. When Jordan's King Hussein tried to protest or resist this loss, he was quickly silenced and basically forced to stand down. But the geopolitical maneuvering didn't stop there. By 1970 and 1971, the PLO was trying to establish a base of operations within Jordan itself. Driven by a very real fear of Israeli retaliation and a strong desire to maintain their own internal security, King Hussein cracked down and actually expelled the PLO from Jordanian territory. So a really clear pattern starts to emerge here: Jordan consistently prioritizing its own state security and stability in relation to Israel.
Let's skip ahead a bit. Section 4, the 1994 Peace Treaty.
In 1994, everything gets put down on paper. Jordan and Israel signed an official peace treaty. And this wasn't just some simple ceasefire. It was a binding agreement of incredibly deep collaboration. Both nations officially committed to mutual military support, joint combat training, and they locked themselves into ongoing strategic cooperation. So when we look at the recent interception of those missiles, it wasn't some sudden, isolated choice. It was entirely in line with the commitments they laid out in this 1994 framework. They agreed to help each other out militarily, and honestly, that is exactly what happened.
But here is the absolute kicker. This agreement wasn't just a local handshake. The official guarantor of the 1994 peace treaty was the United States. And that shifted the entire geopolitical landscape. Having the U.S. as the official guarantor meant that this peace treaty was fully backed by the world's primary superpower. So, stepping away from the treaty wouldn't just anger Israel, it would literally mean breaking a core commitment guaranteed by Washington.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 5, Geopolitics and Financial Ties.
Because to truly understand state behavior, you always have to follow the money. And the magic number you need to know today is $3.5 billion. That is the amount of financial aid provided to Jordan by the United States every single year.
It's a massive, enormous sum of money that constantly flows into the country from its superpower ally.
To put that into perspective, that $3.5 billion isn't just a drop in the bucket. It makes up a staggering 6.5% of Jordan's entire gross domestic product. Let that sink in. 6.5% of Jordan's entire economy is funded directly by the United States government. This level of structural and economic funding creates a dependence that is virtually impossible for any state leadership to just ignore when they're making high-stakes strategic military decisions.
This deep dependency brings us to a really pointed quote from our sources regarding this exact dynamic. When you receive this much money, the conscience never awakens. The argument here is that when an economy is so heavily reliant on U.S. aid, expecting that the country will prioritize regional, cultural, or religious unity over its core alliances with the U.S. and Israel is simply unrealistic. In many ways, the money guarantees the strategy.
This whole historical and financial reality is actually summarized beautifully by a poetic analogy from Urdu literature. Na khanjar utega, na talvar inse, which translates to, neither dagger nor sword will be raised by them. It's a powerful reminder that Jordan's non-combative, alliance-first strategy really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone at this point. They had been perfectly clear about their strategy from day one, acting exactly as they promised to act since 1994, rather than risk their entire economy.
Which leaves us with a final thought-provoking question for you. Is Iran fighting just one nation, or are they fighting a complex global web of allies? Because when those missiles fire toward Israel, they aren't just engaging the Israeli military. They are engaging a heavily interconnected geopolitical chessboard, where nations like Jordan are bound by decades of treaties, mutual defense pacts, and literally billions of dollars in economic reliance to act exactly as they did. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive has given you a clearer understanding of the forces that are truly shaping the headlines right now. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.